Alright guys, a follow-up to the video I did last Saturday of classic aromatic Fougere fragrances, barbershop fragrances, and today we've got modern fragrances. It's a top 20 list ranked for you today. Find out what they are coming right up. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is Sebastian. We're talking about Fougere fragrances, barbershop fragrances. Generally masculine leaning fragrances. If you didn't catch last week's video, which were the classic ones, the classic options, please go catch those, because the fragrances of yesteryear smell quite different than the fragrances that are modern. In regards to the Fougeres that I grew up with in the 80s, very powerhouse, totally different than now, and you'll definitely be able to notice the differences. I mean, you'll get the idea that they're similar style, but they do smell different because they use different ingredients nowadays in comparison to what they used back then. And also, I think in general the styles are different, even though we're speaking about Fougere fragrances, barbershop fragrances. If you don't know what Fougere means, it means fern in French, and the very first Fougere fragrance was Fougere Royale, but not this version. I didn't feature this in last week's video because this was updated in 2010 and it became very modern. But the original launched in the late 1800s and they were recreating the smell of a fern. And so, I mean, it has a very light essence, but let's say it had a really fragrant essence. They were trying to recreate that. And they kind of accomplished it, because when I smell a Fougere fragrance, now, I don't necessarily think of a fern, but I get the idea of something green like that. So it's a top 20 list. Before I get to the fragrances, I do want to also mention there is a video on the channel in addition to this, not part of this series, of amber Fougeres or warm amber barbershop fragrances, meaning that they utilize the Fougere notes with more warmer notes, amber, vanilla, resins, and things like that, where they become a lot warmer than these. Generally, Fougere fragrances are very fresh, even though we have a few kind of getting close to being more like amber Fougeres. The majority of these fragrances are your traditional barbershop Fougere fragrances. Let's get started with number 20. It's from the house of DS and DURGA. It's Burning Barbershop. So Burning Barbershop is exactly that. You've got your traditional Fougere style fragrance here, done in a more indie niche style way that the perfumer did for DS and DURGA, but there is a smoky edge about it. It does have a very smoky experience. So if you like the idea of something a little more daring, you're getting the idea with the aromatics. There's lavender here, there's spearmint, there's hay, there's also additional, notes here like lime and hemlock and spruce, a little bit of rose, but then you have burnt oil in here to give you that kind of a burned experience. That's why it's called Burning Barbershop. So that's DS and DURGA's Burning Barbershop. And keeping the burning or smoky tradition of this style of Fougere fragrance going, I've got VERT Fougere here from the house of FLORIS, and this one is smoky in addition to your traditional Fougere fragrance. So in the end, you're wearing something that smells like your basic, really great smelling barbershop fragrance, and along the way comes smoke to kind of cut through that fragrance or interfere or interrupt or disrupt, which kind of is unique, but you've got to be into the idea of smoke with your barbershop fragrance or Fougere fragrance to enjoy this. And I kind of like that sometimes when you're so used to wearing something, it smells the same over and over again. Something just wakes you up because you're not really familiar or used to that kind of an experience. But VERT Fougere from FLORIS is nice. It's a great house. It's a great fragrance. Just you got to be into the smoke idea again. But moving on to the house of LALIQUE, this is L'Insoumis. This is a fairly modern take on a Fougere and also very fresh. It's also a designer, and you can get it discounted, so it's fairly inexpensive, but I wanted to put it here because I really like the way it smells. It also has this kind of an ice-cold characteristic with some of the notes that are in here. This is mostly Clary, sage, basil, woods. There's rum, lavender, and vetiver here, so you've got a bit of a boozy experience, but it's so fresh, it doesn't have that kind of a thick, ambery, boozy touch. Even though you're smelling it, it doesn't weigh you down. It's a very fresh fragrance and smells fantastic, and I like it just as an everyday grab and go kind of a wear. I like the aromatic touches, the spiciness, and the freshness here. So it's LALIQUE L'Insoumis at number 18. Then something that's extremely fresh from the house of ROJA Parfums. This is Scandal Parfum Cologne. really fresh, really refreshing, but also very Fougere style. And I like what they've done here with this. They've overdosed it with Oakmoss. There's lemons. It's an overdose of lemons with lavender. There's mint, a bit of ambergris. There's cloves, patchouli, lily of the valley. There's jasmine thrown in as well. And the combination is great. It just seems very, very fresh rather than having any depth or intensity. So you got to be into these kind of fresh wearing fragrances, light wearing. This is Parfum Cologne they call it, but I think it's more like an eau de toilette. It's not necessarily parfum and it's not cologne, kind of gimmicky kind of a thing, I think. But as a smell, it's really, really great. I kind of prefer this over the original Scandal because I think it's changed up a little bit, the formula. It smells really like a barbershop fragrance, but modern and very fresh, really ice cold and invigorating. So that's Scandal from a Scandal Parfum Cologne from the house of ROJA Parfums. So here we have a little bit of a technicality. This might be going into a little bit of that amber Fougere direction, but I wanted to feature it here because it's kind of light on that kind of amber Fougere style. This is Histoire de Parfum 1725 Casanova. It utilizes vanilla and almonds to give you a little bit of a gourmand edge, but I don't think this goes fully gourmand to me. It's just kind of gourmand light. It's very powdery and nutty. The almonds is pretty prominent in here. There's also, of course, lavender, which is traditionally found in Fougere fragrances all the time. Most of the time, I should say. There's licorice, star anise, amber, sandalwood, grapefruit, and citruses. It's a different take on a Fougere fragrance, but I like what I smell. It's a bit of an edible, gourmandesque take on a barbershop fragrance, which in tradition, it's not necessarily smelling like this, but I like this breath of fresh air because you get tired of the same kind of fragrance over and over again. You want some variety and something different than what it's traditionally made to smell like. So that's Histoire de Parfum 1725 Casanova. Then we're going to the house of NISHANE. NISHANE does have a Fougere fragrance as well, and I believe it's created by Chris Maurice. It's B612. This in the end does wear very light and musky. It's in the end has Cypress, there's Cashmeran here, Patchouli, Vetiver, Sandalwood, Musk, Tonka, Cedar, Oakmoss, and Geranium. So typically tonka beans or coumarin is what's found in the base notes in a Fougere fragrance, and up top or in the heart notes, you have lavender, geranium, and some citruses, and of course oak moss and things like that come in as well. This does wear very, very musky, which is also kind of unique, but to me it's also on the light side, not traditionally of what NISHANE fragrances are like. So it wears very light, but I like that about it because you can liberally spray this. Smell amazing, very aromatic, very spicy, Fougere like barbershop fragrance, but also uber musky. So that's B612 from the house of NISHANE. Then we're going to the house of Le Labo. It's Lavender 31. I actually did a video on this. I believe you can go catch the video of the review. It was part of a long format Your Questions Answered video, which I separated and aired alone. But you know, everything about this smells great except for the performance. It's kind of light and weak on me, which is a bummer because I love the way it smells. It's definitely a very modern take on a really beautiful, gorgeous lavender forward Fougere. But I just wish it was a little longer lasting, which is a bummer. But it's lavender, bergamot, neroli, amber, musk, and tonka, which is my complaint with a lot of Le Labo fragrances lately. They just seem very subdued. They don't have a lot of projection. They're very soft. Is this what people are wearing nowadays? Soft fragrances? I like loudness, and this one doesn't deliver in that side. But as a smell, it's really, really great. Let me know what your experience is with Lavender 31, guys. Do you get a bit of a weak performing offering, or do you get something very substantial and intense? That was at number 14, but then at number 13 is Absinthe Boreal. This is from the house of Maison Crivelli. Just keeping in mind, these are very modern Fougere fragrances, guys. So they're very modern experiences. And this one, once again, Absinthe Boreal, it's very ice cold. It utilizes a lot of absinthe here for the kind of Fougere notes that are traditionally found. It's kind of green and aromatic and spicy, but there's also lavender here to kind of help it along. Along the way, there's juniper berry, eucalyptus, mint, lemon, artemisia, and musks. And this is the keynote. The juniper gives you a lot of kind of a metallic, ice cold qualities in a fragrance. If you're ever into the idea of wearing these kind of like cooling fragrances, you live in a very hot climate, uber, humid and hot, look for fragrances with juniper berry. I think that'll cool you off. And this one is perfectly cool, but also very, very fougere. And I like the absinthe in here, giving me a bit of a licorice anise vibe. It's a great take on a fougere fragrance, I think. But very fresh once again. This is Maison Crivelli Absinthe Boreal. And then we're going to the house of Indica. This is Idlewild, this one right here. And this fragrance is a really nice take on a green and fern and pine, like take on a fougere, which is really great with the light fruitiness from rhubarb and also citruses from grapefruit. So it has notes of cypress, there's woodsy notes, there's fir, there's cardamom, artemisia, there's tea in here along with that rhubarb and grapefruit. So there's a bit of a zingy characteristic here, and also juicy fruity because rhubarb provides that. But it's almost like getting lost in the forest, Northern California forest of woods and pine and fir and things like that. And along the way, you're smelling spices and aromatics thrown in. It's a really great take on a fougere fragrance, a barbershop fragrance. If you haven't discovered it, please do, especially if you like these kind of forest-like smells mixed in with your fragrances. So that's Idlewild from the house of Indica. Then we've got JUS Parfums Icy Fizz. This is also a really great cooling fragrance. It's just very, very invigorating. I mean, this one has tea. Tea along with neroli, there's lavender, there's pepper, there's blonde woods, and bergamot. So it's a very, very ice-cold take on a fougere, but also very calming and cozy because it has that long gin green tea note in here. And green tea, or just tea in general in fragrances, is just a really, really soothing kind of a experience. There's a subconscious thing about it. It just wears very cozy on me. It's the kind of fragrance I would wear to end the day with, to kind of relax with, and it just has that, going for it. But this is also perfect to wear in the heat of the summer because it's got that cooling quality, as I said. It's called Icy Fizz, and it acts like that. So this is JUS Parfums Icy Fizz. Let me know if you're familiar with that one. Then go into the house of Parfums Dusita. It's Isara. This is the second fragrance that I have in here, and the last that is kind of bordering the amber fougere style. And even though it doesn't fully go there, the smells to me like brute a little bit. And also it has a warm kind of amber glow in the base, which this features tobacco, clary, pine, coumarin, vetiver, oak moss, and woods. They don't mention there's amber. It's almost like a honeyed amber effect happening in the base. Maybe it's created by the coumarin, which is the tonka beans, but a really great barbershop fragrance in classic style as well. It smells super fantastic. So that's Isara from the house of Parfums Dusita. Let me know if you're familiar with that one. And then this one as well also gives me the brute qualities. This is Sartorial from the house of Penhaligon's. Really a great classic style fougere fragrance, totally reminding me of my dad's fougere fragrances. This is lavender, metallic notes, beeswax, oak moss, aldehydes, and it has that kind of very familiar kind of smell with the fougere fragrances. There is warmth here as well. It's kind of honeyed from the beeswax, but once again, it's not like uber, like amber fougere style, but a really cozy fougere, very classic style but modern take on a very familiar smell for barbershop fragrances. This is Sartorial from the house of Penhaligon's. And then we have one more Penhaligon's here. This is the Tragedy of Lord George. This one right here. And this one has shaving soap as a note. So basically they've created an accord that smells like shaving soap, giving you that kind of barbershop effect, along with the tonka beans in the base, which is typically found in a fougere. And up top it's quite boozy with brandy notes. So you've got a kind of a very interesting, men do like to sip on brandy or spirits, and then of course they like to shave with the barbershop kind of shaving things. And then of course you wear a fragrance that has both of those smells combined together. It's a really great fragrance from the Portraits collection from the house of Penhaligon's, and I love the horns on this little bottle here. That's the Tragedy of Lord George from the house of Penhaligon's. And then we've got a fragrance from the house of Rania J. It's Lavande 44. You know, Lavande 44 is also very familiar. If you're familiar with any of your family members or even your barbershop fragrances that you wore from the, the 60s, 70s, 80s, and things like that, there's such a familiar smelling thing about this one. It takes me back to when my dad was wearing fragrances. And I like that about this fragrance. It's lavender, tonka, vetiver, lab Galbanum, Patchouli, Oud and Musk. And the way the fragrance is created is so beautiful, very gorgeous. Lots of lavender with the tonka giving you that kind of shaving soap or barbershop kind of an experience. Really great fragrance here. Lavande 44 from a small indie niche house. Then we're going to the house of Diptyque. It's Eau de Minte, and they're creating the barbershop experience with mint. And mint and geranium are in here with nutmeg, patchouli, and rose. The geranium is also a bit minty, so it's also a bit rosy. So green is very ideal for what geranium smells like. It's got a very distinct smell. So mint and geranium together, definitely very barbershop-y here. And in the base, you've got that patchouli, the earthiness, and the nutmeg. There is a little bit of a reminder of your classic barbershop fragrances in here as well, but all created with mint and geranium. Really wonderful creation from the house of Diptyque. Even though it's a unisex targeted release, it leans very masculine, I think. Eau de Minte is fantastic. Now the next fragrance is from the house of Maison Francis Kurkdjian. I'm putting it here at number 5. This is the original Masculine Pluriel, which I have this bottle of. I'm saving it because they've redone it, and I haven't really experienced the new version. I smelled it once really quickly. It did remind me of this. I haven't really worn it. I am featuring this one here, so if I had the other one, I would feature that here as well. It's lavender, vetiver, patchouli, cedar, woodsy notes, and leather. Really a great barbershop fragrance from Maison Francis Kurkdjian. The fragrances of yesteryear, I should say yesteryear, older fragrances from Maison Francis Kurkdjian did seem a little bit better than some of the newer stuff that they're coming out with, and it's sad that this was reformulated. Have you guys compared this to the new version? Does it smell similar? Does it wear similar? I think it was because of ingredients removed from the formula. But either way, it's a really great, very classy barbershop Fougere fragrance from the house of MFK. It's Masculine Pluriel. Let me know if you're familiar with that. And Tom Ford's got a great fragrance in the Fougere category. In fact, they had several. Now we've got just one. This is Beau de Jour in the signature line, and I think they did a great job with this fragrance. It originally was part of the private blend collection, and they relaunched it as a signature collection. This has an overdose of lavender with 2 different varieties. There's rosemary here, there's patchouli, oak moss, even mint and basil and geranium and amber. It's very herbal, it's very aromatic and also spicy. It does settle to a little bit of an amber. When it's drying down, it becomes earthy and woody. I wouldn't call this an amber Fougere. It's your traditional barbershop fragrance style. Really nicely done. One of the best from the house of Tom Ford. It's Beau de Jour at number 4. We're almost finished, guys. At number 3, going to the house of Chanel. It's Boy from the Les Exclusives collection. Are you guys familiar with this one? I think they did a great job with this one. And even though it's unisex targeted, I think Boy does lean masculine, especially when you compare it to other Chanel fragrances. But they did a great job with this. It's lavender, musk, geranium, heliotrope, sandalwood, vanilla, and grapefruit, but I think they did a great job with this one. It's a great take on a very modern Fougere that actually pays tribute to the classics, because you'll be reminded of classics here as well. It's a wonderful, and even though it has heliotrope and vanilla, I don't think this is an amber Fougere whatsoever. It's more your traditional barbershop Fougere fragrance with some warmth under there from the vanilla. Boy from Chanel at number 3, and I am featuring Houbigant's Fougere Royale at number 2. I have both versions. I have the Parfum, and I also have the Eau de Parfum. I don't think you need the Parfum. It's overly priced. It's good, but I think the Eau de Parfum does just fine. And it's a really great take on the original from the 1800s, as I was saying earlier. The perfumer Rodrigo Flores really did a great job on this. He brought that formula to the modern days, which I'm assuming the formula is so different from that between this, but this is a great Fougere, really wonderful modern Fougere that, you know, pays tribute to the classics once again. It's lavender, geranium, there's oak moss here, green notes, chamomile, bergamot with carnation, cinnamon, clary sage, and patchouli. If you're looking for a really quality, luxurious take on a Fougere, Houbigant's Fougere Royale is definitely one that should be on your list. I think it's a great job. If you can afford the Parfum, get it. It's really overpriced, I think. The Eau de Parfum will do, and you'll smell really classy and elegant in your when you're wearing the, you know, the Fougere fragrance. So that's Fougere Royale from the house of Houbigant. And then finally at number 1, it's Rogue Perfumery's Mousse Illuminée. Oh god, this is good. This is the best fragrance in the Fougere style. So different from all of these. Manuel Cross did a great job with this one. It was so good, I actually asked the brand, Manuel Cross, the owner of his brand Rogue Perfumery, to feature this in a kit, and I was so grateful that he allowed me to. It's one of the best fragrances ever made. I love it because there's a boozy factor about this because it has a lot of artemisia with tree moss, frankincense, green cypress. There's laurels here, cedar, white flowers, white musk. Super original. Amazing fragrance. Does remind you a little bit of Irish Spring, but it is so amazing. Absolutely love this. I unfortunately don't like the absolute version of this. I love this one a lot. The other one tends to be a little animalic, and it's kind of missing the qualities of this one. This one has a lot of charm. The other one's kind of dark and muted animalic take on this, where this one has that brightness and booziness that I really love. The absolute I didn't care for much. This is amazing. It deserves to be at number 1. This is Rogue Perfumery's Mousse Illuminée, and that is the list for you guys. Let me know your thoughts on these Fougere barbershop fragrances. Add a comment below. Let me know what your thoughts are. Am I missing something? Probably. I know Bracken Man got discontinued from Amouage. Sunshine Man is over on the Amber Fougere list. These are, like I said, your traditional Fougere barbershop fragrances that are not the Amber Fougere style. But let me know what else is missing. Add a comment below. And don't forget to catch the first fragrance of the classic Fougere fragrances, barbershop fragrances. I have it linked in the info box. Either way, guys, thanks so much for watching today's video. If you have any questions or comments, please list below. Please like this video. Please share it. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook. And I'll be back with more videos very soon. Have a good one. Goodbye.